We might get started. 你们好，我是Jill Lawson. 我的中文不好，对不起, so I will speak in English. Hello, everybody. My name is Jill Lawson. I'm an associate professor in landscape architecture at Lincoln University in New Zealand. I'm also on the board of trustees for the Landscape Research Group. Welcome to Publishing Pathways, where we've organised a series of 4 seminars for early career researchers to assist you with developing your own strategies for publishing your research work. A few housekeeping points that I want to bring to your attention. You should be aware that we're recording these sessions. That's for people who can't attend today. We've also put a Zoom link into the chat in case Vuv lets us down and something happens and we've got to change to a different platform. I'm hoping that we don't, but just in case. And the final thing is that for those people who are registering for seminar 2, 3, and 4, you'll be receiving separate links to come for those sessions. So firstly, a little bit about the Landscape Research Group. It started in the UK in 1967, so it's almost 50 years old. We have developed, or LRG has been developing a community of scholars and practitioners with a shared interest in landscape. And we've got a series of networks around the world. We have a network in Oceania, in Latin America, in North America, Europe, and now China. So that's exciting. LRG publishes Landscape Research, which you'll probably know, a journal that is peer-reviewed. It's international, and LRG also supports Landscape Review, which is a diamond open access journal that is published out of Lincoln University that is free for readers and free for authors. LRG also offers funding for small research projects, and the current round has just opened today. So if you're a member, you can look at the LRG website and it'll tell you how you can apply for a small amount of funding for any research work that you're interested in getting funding for. But I think the most important thing today is for those of you that haven't already become a member of LRG is to seriously consider joining as a member, because developing your international research network is very important for you as you become a more experienced academic. So that's it from me. I'm going to hand over to Meng Xin, and she's going to give you more details about what's happening in this session today. Over to you, Meng.
Okay, thanks, Jill. Thanks for the brief introduction of LRG and your contribution to China Network Event Series. I'm today's moderator, Meng Xin, Associate Professor at Beijing University of Civil Engineering and Architecture, a trustee of LRG, and the young editorial board member of the journal Landscape Architecture and Landscape Architecture Frontiers. So when it comes to the original intention behind organizing this event, I've found that many young academics and students in China have struggled with publishing in international journals. I also encountered the same issues in my early years in this profession: how to choose a suitable English language journal, how to conduct a critical analysis, and how to ensure my research has a global perspective while reflecting a local identity. In my years as a teacher, I've also noticed that Chinese students struggle to understand the comments and the suggestions from peer reviewers and can't communicate clearly with editors. I think we should try to break down these barriers between authors and editors, and believe this is also the reason why we choose to hold this event in China. And this China Network event series comprise a total of 4 sessions, as Jill said about. In session 1, as we know, we have invited 4 speakers to discuss some quite important issues, such as the stages in the publishing process from submission to publication, and the main challenges, especially non-native English speakers, faced by the new authors in getting their work published, and the expectations from authors and the reviewers. So I'm honored to introduce our guest speakers, Professor Jing Hexian, but unfortunately she's unable to give us a presentation today because she's feeling unwell due to the seasonal allergies. And Professor Ian Mail, who is the head of Department Planning, Property, Environmental Management, the School of Environment, Education and Development, University of Manchester. He's a vice chair of ARG and associate editor of Urban Forestry and Urban Greening. Professor Zheng Xi, who is the dean of the School of Landscape Architecture, Beijing Forestry University. He's editor-in-chief of both Landscape Architecture Journal and but not least Wang Zhifang, who is a vice dean at the College of Architecture and Landscape, Peking University. She's associate editor-in-chief of the journal Landscape Architecture Frontiers. So in session 1, each guest speaker will have 20 minutes to present. Once all the presentations have finished, there are going to be a 15 minutes Q&A session where you can ask each other questions. I'll also be checking the chat box for any questions the audience has been posted. Now, let's get started. I'd like to invite our first speaker, Professor Ian Mail, to give us a presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Meng, and thank you, Jill, for the invitation. It's great to be here. It's 2 a.m. in the morning in the UK, so for once I have to work on somebody else's time zone rather than other people working on a UK one. So hopefully what I've got to say will be of interest. I don't have a formal PowerPoint, but I'm going to talk through my thoughts on the areas that which Meng just set out there. And I think our other speakers will have more details as well. I think what I'd like to start with is that publishing is something you learn. It's something that you constantly learn how to do. As editors, we're still learning how to do it. We still learn how to write, how to engage with other people. And so there is no single best way to do this. There is no single solution for how you get published. And I don't think it's a Chinese or a non-Chinese issue. I think it's the global issue. I was just thinking while the introduction was going on that when I first finished my PhD, I submitted a paper to the International Journal of Urban and Regional Research, so IJURR. Went for one of the highest journals in the world. The paper was really rubbish. It got rejected, but the editor was really nice about it. They sent it out for review. And so I was like, oh yeah, I should probably think about what I'm doing rather than just sending it to the journal I think it should go to. So we'll come back to some of those ideas around journal fit and about what we do in our work throughout the next 15-20 minutes or so. But just in terms of setting out the process, the development and the submission and how it's reviewed, we as authors write our papers. We then submit them to a journal via the online portals. It goes to either a chief editor or an associate editor. It then goes out for review. It comes back. It goes out again. There's lots of revisions. So it's quite a long and drawn out process, but it's very systematic. So there will be people reviewing work at every stage, be it an editor, an associate editor, a set of reviewers, associate editors again before it gets published. And I think that within that lies the thing that I really like to hit home about patience and about time. I'm aware, because I work with lots of Chinese folks, including Meng, for example, that there is the need to publish. There's the need to develop your resumes. There's a need to get your work out there, be it as a master's student or a PhD student or an early career academic. But things take time. Submissions, reviews take time. As an editor, we sometimes go through 15, 20 people to find somebody who might actually review your paper. And then reviewers are notoriously bad at timekeeping. I, for one, I'm really terrible. I do it right at the last minute. I tend to wait for the email to remind me. And as such, I got one last week from landscape research and I did it that day, because we're all balancing lots of different things. And so as an early career researcher, you're focused on your papers and getting them out there, but reviewers are teaching, they're administrators, they're leading projects, they're doing other things as well. So I think what that notion that we have to be cognizant, we have to be aware that time is quite precious and that it's not necessarily going to be as quick as you want. And I think within that lies the real difficulty of not trying to constantly email editors saying, where's my paper? Where's my paper? Where's my paper? Because editors will let you know where your paper is when the reviews come back. And yes, we chase reviewers. We ask them where things are going. We ask them politely because they're doing this for free. It's part of our service to the industry. But you asking an editor, where's my paper, doesn't always go down well. So just be aware of that. And so once the papers come through, we do the revisions, it goes back to you, it comes back to us. If it's accepted, then we got the whole process of production. So copy editing, doing all the typesetting, doing the proofreading, which is incredibly tedious because of the online systems we have to use. And then hopefully it gets accepted and either published online or published in a hardback journal. And what I will say is that when you get the acceptance email, still now, I still go, yes, another one done. I still get really happy. And when I get rejected, I still get really cross. Then I read the comments and go, they're fair. And so there's a bit of back and forth. So I think as early career researchers, as you're developing your skills and going through this journey, there's a few things to really consider. One, some are about the paper itself and the work, some are about the journals that you pick, some are about your expectations of editors and of reviewers, and also the expectations of editors and reviewers of you as well. So if we start with the work and the papers, speed seems to be a big motivator at the moment for a lot of academic work. How quickly can we get this work submitted? And I think that's useful, but it also needs to be moderated slightly to go, is the work ready to be submitted? Is it the best it can be? Are the methods correct? Is the analysis good? Is the framing, is the research question there? Are all these things integrated into the paper so that when it goes to an editor, they can clearly see the whole thing in one go, and will reviewers react positively to it rather than saying this paper's not finished? Now, as an editor, I've rejected tens of papers because they've been a master's student who's been advised to submit their dissertation, but they haven't transferred it into a paper format. They've kind of just gone and submitted what they submitted for their academic work. And it doesn't work. It's not the right format. So really think about getting the paper prepared in the style of the journal you're submitting to. If it's around referencing, use their referencing system. If it's around, let's say, MPJ sustainability, they want the methods at the end rather than in the sequential idea. So it's a bit strange. So just make sure that you are doing what they want. I would also really, really stress that having a big data set does not a paper make. Data is useful, but what's the question? And this is something that I think we're seeing more is like, I've got this big data set, I've done some analysis, but if it's not grounded in ideas, in key issues, in the literature, then it's very difficult to convince an editor that it's worthwhile publishing. So just be aware that data is not the be all and end all. In addition, I would think about the use of AI, which is something becoming more prominent in terms of helping, but not writing, because it's really obvious in a lot of cases when something's written by AI because it doesn't really read right. It doesn't fit. There are bits that have different voices that you need to be able to have a continuity between the paper that actually everything fits together. So use it by all means. I use it for referencing. I've got colleagues who use it who use Grammarly, for example, just because English isn't their first language, and they just want to polish things rather than using it as the baseline. And so once you've got your paper prepared, once you've got all the typesetting done, went to the journal, then think about which journal. And this is key. Just because the best journal in your field is that one, it doesn't mean it's the best paper, but the best place for your paper. Landscape Research, for example, is an amazing journal. It is a really, really good journal for a broad church of different landscape areas. But if you look at the impact factors, it's not massively high, but it might be the best place for your paper with the best audience. So impact factors do not always mean it's the best place for you. And I know there's an incredible amount of pressure to only publish in those tier 1 journals, to only go for those top things that are seen to be the best, but are they the best for your paper? Because if you're submitting to journals where the paper's not the right fit, or it's not doing something so innovative that the editor will reject it, then you're wasting your time and you're going to have to go somewhere else anyway. So just spend a bit of time thinking about the best journal. So my submission to IJURR was very silly on my part. I recognize this now, but at the time I was like, oh, that's the best journal, I'll just go for that one. Read through what they want, what they've published recently, to get a feel for whether your work will be the sort of thing that they're looking for. So once you've put your paper together, once you've submitted it to the right journal, because it's the right paper, then you've got to navigate editors and reviewers. Editors are very busy. Editors are doing lots of things at the same time, but they want quality for their journals. They don't necessarily want quantity. So just because it's a paper doesn't mean it's automatically going to get reviewed. It might get desk rejected. And if that's the case, they will normally tell you why, and then you can go and work on it and take it elsewhere. But you just need to be aware that journal editors are also looking for things that are new, things that are innovative, either conceptually or methodologically, things that are offering new ideas and new evidence to the field and to generate new debates. So just because you've used the same method in a different city, it's not necessarily new. And I certainly see with urban forestry and urban greening, a lot of very similar climate change studies in different Chinese cities where it's a replication of the method and it doesn't necessarily add to the debates. But if you're thinking about how it works with policy, or how you're using different techniques, or how you're using different climatic zones, that might be the thing that that changes that. So editors are really looking out for what would their readership like to read versus what's going to be new and interesting. So sometimes there's a few things that are a bit peripheral, but most journals will have a core of ideas of what they want. And then the editor will then start the process of finding reviewers. As I said before, finding reviewers is getting increasingly difficult. There are so many papers currently in the publishing system that finding reviewers who will A, review, B, review on time, and C, review with a level of care is sometimes difficult. Some people write thousands of words of critical reflection. Other people write 2 lines and go, it's fine, or reject it. So it is difficult to find the right people to do the job. And that can be difficult for early career researchers because you might get very different responses from reviewers. And then you have to think about how you navigate that and deal with that. But editors, our job is to try and put together the most appropriate things that need doing. We will also read the papers and make a judgment on it to see whether or not we think there are things that can be improved. And so there's a conversation really, but it's a conversation that is polite, hopefully, that is respectful, and that is understanding that editorial work is it's low paid and there's a lot of stress and everybody wants something quicker. Now with reviewers themselves, reviewers can be really fantastic, or they can be not so. Reviewer 2, the jokes about reviewer 2 being the grumpy person who just says your paper is not very good. That was probably me 10 years ago when I was being really, really thorough and being super critical. But now it's like, well, being really critical doesn't necessarily help the author to make the paper better. It's what can be done to allow them or enable them to reshape things in a way which is meaningful and actually retains the essence of the paper, but this elevates it either methodologically, conceptually, or in terms of the framing. And so reviewers can be a really useful tool, and they're essential for publishing. If people don't review, we don't have papers, because we have to do both. So one thing that has been quite frustrating as an editor in the last, well, since COVID actually, is that people will submit papers, but then will never review. And it's like, well, if you expect people to review your work, you should be reviewing other people's as well. So that relationship is really key. And it does sometimes take a long time to find reviewers. So if you are waiting, it's probably because people haven't replied yet, or it's probably because people are just waiting for that review to come back. If it does go out to review and you get comments, then you'll get them back and you'll be asked to make revisions. And then this is where you get to read through them. You might get grumpy going, that's not true, I don't like that. But you have to engage in revisions with a level of patience and professionalism. You can't just ignore things, but you can put rebuttals. You can say, well, actually, we don't think that's correct because we did this or we did that, or that doesn't really help our argument, so we did this instead. And the editors will then try to make a judgment about those kind of things. Some reviewers get really, really annoyed if you don't do everything they say, but that's the job of the editor to sort of find a balance. One of the other things that is quite common is that reviewers will put, you need to cite this person 5 times, and it'll be a whole load of papers by one person. That person might be doing the review. So it's sometimes academics want to place themselves in your work as well, which can be quite frustrating. But reviewers tend to be there to try and improve what's going on. But it can be harsh. It can be really, really harsh to hear people go, I don't think your work is where it should be. I think your methodological analysis isn't good enough. I don't think your framing is good enough. And that can be hard to deal with because we have egos, we think our work is good, but actually it might not be as good as it could be. And the job of the reviewers is to elevate the work into something better, to make it as strong as it could be. So I think if you always remember these people are trying to help, then that could be a way of getting around the, oh, it might, are these people being mean to me just because I'm from place A or I'm doing subject B? And so editors and reviewers, they're important parts of the ecosystem that we work in. Be polite, be patient, don't harass them too much or they'll start getting frustrated. When it comes to actually thinking about the challenges of publishing, particularly in a second language, I'm very lucky. I'm from the UK, I speak English, and most journals publish in English, so I'm an advantage. But my English prose is not always the best sometimes, so again, I have to edit and do things. So I think the fact that we have numerous proofreading services, including the landscape research one that's available, that we can use AI in some cases, and that we have multiple members of a team working on something, that offers us opportunities to try and ensure that the language and the framing is as good as it could be. So whilst English is the lingua franca of publishing, it doesn't put you at a disadvantage if the work is good. There are lots and lots of English language academics who really can't write that well and have to go through this process as well of getting help to do it. There's a chap called Professor Mark Tudor-Jones. He works at University College London. He's a very eminent professor. He has his mum do all his proofreading for him because he thinks that she's a very good judge of whether something makes sense. I myself have used proofreaders for a number of years until quite recently, where the guys that I use stopped doing it, so I started doing it myself. But that was good because you start to see where some of the errors in what you're doing come through, and particularly if you have that relationship, that they can be quite honest with you. One of the things about the paper is, and this might sound quite harsh, but don't necessarily think that you are reinventing the whole world with your paper. Don't be arrogant to think that your work is so good there's nothing wrong with it. And we see a lot of this in the university here in Manchester. PhD students think their work is perfect, and it's not. There's always going to be critiques. So assume that somebody will find something, and respond professionally, politely. Go, thank you for that comment. I don't necessarily agree. Here's what I've done. And you get used to writing the phrase, we'd like to thank the reviewers for their helpful comments, but we've done something else. And so just be aware that people will have a difference of opinion. And all this feeds into back to a couple of points I made before about pressures and speed. I work with quite a lot of folks in China, and I know the pressures that come from the institutions to publish, and to publish in those very high-ranking, high-impact journals. And those journals have incredibly high rejection rates, like 80, 90%. So getting in there is really an achievement. But it also means that going in with a paper which isn't fully rounded, isn't fully finished, doesn't necessarily meet what they want in terms of their profile or their scope or their readership, it can get rejected. Just last week, I had a paper rejected from a different journal where I'd read the scope and the editor went, no, we don't think it fits. But I'd actually read it and actually wrote the cover letter accordingly. But I was like, okay, we'll try somewhere else. But just be aware that those institutional pressures shouldn't be the driving factor of submitting papers. It should be, is the work good enough? Is it ready to go in? Will it do something interesting? Will it be well received? And will I get good feedback? Because if you don't take the time to ensure that these papers are ready, they're potentially going to get rejected or get major revisions, then more major revisions, and the time frame just elongates. So spending more time at the start to make sure it is how it should be, rather than doing it all at the end, actually shortens the time scale. And when reviewers come back and say, I really like this paper, but these are a few things to fix, because you've spent that time, that's an easy fix. That's a couple of weeks, maybe a month work to update it and to modify and to enhance it. But if they come back saying, this paper is not finished, the methodology is not right, the analysis doesn't really do anything, that takes a lot more time to go back and then rework it to make sure that it is meeting those ideas. So just be really, really careful about thinking, I need to publish, I need to publish, I need to publish, I need to publish, I need to publish. Because yes, but if you rush it, then the whole thing will be slower. And as an editor, and I would assume Jill might say the same thing, that we see so many things which are obviously not finished or obviously not where they should be, that we have to reject them. And we don't like rejecting stuff. We want people to be published. But if it's just not there, that's what happens. And I know certainly that I've rejected papers which I've then seen published elsewhere in a very different way. They've been published, they've been redone because of the comments that they got. And so just take the time to ensure that the paper is the best it can be, it's in the right journal, that you're thinking about what your paper adds to that journal in terms of its readership, in terms of its visibility, in terms of its arguments, and think about how that journal actually fits your work. Landscape Research is a great example. I'm also an editor for Town Planning Review, a journal based out of the University of Liverpool, and it only recently got its impact factor because it was never databased properly, because Liverpool University Press decided not to do it. But what we find there is that it's one of those journals that likes interesting ideas, and so it can be a bit of a better home for some things which might not fit in urban studies, that might not fit in IJUR or landscape and urban planning. So just think really, really carefully, because it allows you to really start to identify what's happening. So be patient, do the work properly, make sure it's in the right journal, have a good relationship with editors, and then hopefully you should be getting lots of publications to boost your CV. So again, Jill, Meng, thank you for the invitation, and I hope that was useful.
Thank you very much, Jill. Ian, sorry. I really like your critical attitudes and some philosophy ideas about these publishing pathways. So thank you very much. And so next presenter, we will invite Professor Zheng Xi to give us a presentation.
Okay,
Okay.
I'll share my screen. Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for Lawson, Professor Lawson and Professor Li Mengyu, and also it's my honor to have the opportunity to share our journal's experience. And also, I'm very thank you for Professor Mel for the wonderful sharing the submitting and writing and review the paper's experience, and especially at the 2 o'clock in the UK. So very thank you. And so now I will share my my PPT. Okay. So last October we hosted the 2025 International Landscape Architecture Symposium with LRG. So I'm very thankful for LRG, and we hope to look for the more cooperation with the LRG group. And now I will have a very briefly introduce of the our journal. The picture, the first line shows the Chinese academic journal about the landscape architecture. As of 2024, the total number of scientific and technology journals in China had reached the 5,000 over. Currently, there are almost 5 to 8 academic journals in the field of landscape architecture, along with about 15 to 20 journals covering related interdisciplinary subjects. And the second line shows our institute, the Beijing Forestry University's academic journal cluster, currently consisted of 7 journals, with 4 published in Chinese and 3 in English. And now I will show the first journal about landscape architecture journal. Our aims is focusing on the theory and the practice of landscape architecture planning and design. And the journal published academic articles on the modern theory and history, planning and design, and environmental science and technology of LA. Now is the timeline, and the first issue launched in 1993, and in 2005, we published the to open to bi-monthly issues, and until to the 2015 changes from bi-month to a month publication. And now in the 2024, indexed in DOAJ database. Here is the editorial board. Now I am the editor-in-chief, and Professor Lin Wangsi from the Department of Landscape Architecture, the South China University of Technology, and Professor Zhao Jing from the Beijing Forestry University as the deputy editors. And here show our editorial board, and the third editorial board the meeting held in the Summer Palace, Beijing, and the fourth editorial board meeting in Chongqing University in last year. So the editorial office is located at the Beijing Forestry University, and the editorial team have the full-time editor 6, and recently, Landscape Architecture Journal has received a steady stream of submissions with nearly 4,000 manuscripts submitted. The acceptation rate is approximately 30%, nearly 60% of the articles have received research funding. Here show the number of submissions and number of published papers and acceptance ratio and the funding paper ratio. And the international influence of landscape architecture journal has continued to grow, and including the DOAG, EBS host, ICI, and Mutual Web and GST. Here show the publication lag, and through the measures such as online first publication and XML-based typesetting, Landscape Architecture Journal has shortened its publication cycle to 5 months. And also the journal features columns such as specials, project research, competition, and review. Each issue's special column revolves around a specific academic topic. And from issue 1, 2015 to issue 3, 2026, Landscape Architecture Journal published a total of 161 specials. And about the bilingual manuscript processing system and the bilingual publication. And starting in 2023, the journal will require extended abstract in English and bilingual references. The picture shows the English extended abstract of more than 800 words and also the bilingual references. About the international publication, from the 2006 to 2024, the journal published 374 international articles, accounting for 14% of the total, with authors from 29 countries over the past 5 years. The average annual acceptation rate for international submission was 6%, with an average of 12 international articles published each year. Here show the international articles country and also the ratio of the international article. And between the 2019 and 2024, 5 full-length bilingual issues were published, covering the following themes: the resilient landscapes, smart city and technology, 70 years of international landscape architecture education and prospects, mapping and design of the urban landscape, design research in geographic and geomorphic perspective, and NBS, housing and health. Here show the top 5 high-impact papers by international authors. We can find the topic about the planting community-based design and industrial heritage, and the multi-sensorial landscape perception, and the post-industrial area, and the playground. Here shows the publishing process. The review process for RAG consisted of 4 main stages: the preliminary review, peer review, review by associate editor-in-chief, and final review. So my responsible is for the final review. The process from submission to acceptation typically takes 60 to 90 days. And during the review process, the journal primarily evaluates the academic quality, academic writing level, and the overall academic level of submitting manuscripts, providing feedback based on 6 criteria. So innovativeness, theoretical rigor, scientific rigor, and logicality of writing, and overall academic quality and research value. About the academic promotion, omni-media metrics encompassing print media, websites, and social media platforms. Okay. Our next journal introduction is our new launched journal, Landscape Architecture and Sustainability. And its launch date is September 2025. Now it's quarterly, the 4 issues per year. And we cooperation with the Ke is a publishing and distribution company. Now it's open access in Science Direct platform. Here show the launch ceremony, and the first issue was published in September 2025. So the RAS vision and mission is founded on the belief that a sustainable future hinges on harmonizing the natural and built environments to transcend disciplinary boundaries and foster a holistic understanding of landscape architecture and sustainability strategies. The journal's aim is an international journal that focuses on all innovative theories, policies, and engineering technologies related to landscape and environmental planning, design, construction, and management. So our scope focused on the natural cultural landscape resources, urban green and blue infrastructure, urban ecosystem services, urban tree management and vegetation construction, and the urban habitat and biodiversity conservation, living environmental and public health, policy management and urban public governance, digital landscape, smart city, and so on. The key advantages we think such as the unrivaled visibility. The papers and hosted on Science Direct, which is accessed by more than 20 million global researchers per month. And the second is the rigorous and global impact, committed to rigorous standards. We aim to become a high impact, international recognized core journal. And the highlights is the next is efficient and no article processing charge. So now it's free for publish. As a new academic journal, we are committed to rapid peer review by experts in the field and free article processing and open access. All articles are made freely and permanently available to readers and the elite editorial team. All articles are rigorously edited by the experienced team at RAS editorial office. Here show our editorial board. Now I am the editorial in chief. The Gary Doherty, he just changed his institute from Harvard to the National University of Singapore, and Wendy Chen from the University of Hong Kong, and Stephen Matthews from the University of Delft. And our editorial board comprises members from 23 institutions in 9 countries: China, US, Netherlands, Canada, Italy, Hungary, Australia, New Zealand, and Singapore. The editorial team consists of 2 full-time editors, 6 academic editors, and 1 design editor. Provide a solid foundation for the journal's professional quality and efficient operation. The journal attracts a diverse range of contributors, with currently submission originating from more 15 countries and international contributions accounting from 67% of the total. About the manuscript handling process, we have accelerated the publishing cycle by implementing rigorous pre-screening to increase the accepted rate of external reviews. So now average time to publication is 79 days, and the post review acceptance rate is 90%. The review priorities, the reviewers are required to provide the scores based on the following three aspects. The first is a subject addressed in this article is worth level of investigation, and the second, the information presented was new, and the third, the conclusion were supported by the data. So now we have published 3 issues so far, featuring a total of 18 articles. The authors come from multiple countries, including the China, the US, Iran, Tunisia, Italy, New Zealand, Spain, and the Netherlands. So accepted authors comprise such as the IFLA's President Bruno Marcus, alongside the scholars from world-renowned institutions such as the University of UPenn and Harvard and the Delft of Technology. And also we have invited renowned scholars from both China and abroad to serve as guest editors for organizing special issues. And we will launch 3 special issues in this year, such as the resilient and creative brownfield transformation and the water urban form and sustainability. Our guest editor, including the Professor Neil Kirkwood and Mrs. Kondo from the Harvard and the Berkeley, and so on. And we published the article open access on the Science Direct platform and promote it globally across all media channels, including the Facebook, LinkedIn, and X, and YouTube, and WeChat. The picture shows the UPenn's Dean Stana and to publish his article, and also to take a video to play in the YouTube. So that's it. So thank you again, and welcome to contribution the manuscript to our 2 journals. So thank you very much.
Thank you for the presentation of Zhengxi. And I think it's quite clear to give the structure of the Journal of Landscape Architecture and the English Journal Landscape Architecture and Sustainability. I think everyone has a well-known of these 2 Chinese and English journals. So next we will invite Wang Zhifeng from Peking University to give us a presentation. Wang 老师.
Okay, sure, just wait a moment. Yeah, I'm trying to share my PowerPoint. Okay.
Okay, no worries.
Can you see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay, I'm Zhifeng Wang from Peking University. So my talk is relevant to our journal Landscape Architecture Frontiers, but I think many of my topic show you today will be a lot about the current status and also the challenges we have when our Chinese, academic scholars and also our journal in the publication we have right now. So first, before into the details, here is some information about our journal. Landscape Architecture Foundation is, this journal was officially launched in 2013, but previously, has already been published in the book version. So our founding chief editor is Professor Kong Jianyu. Right now, the journal has been well indexed in a series of both international and also Chinese. So this has been included the Web of Science, the Scopus, and also the CSCD. we try a lot trying to reach very fast peer review process, and also we are trying to push our publication. We are trying to push our publication period within 4 months. And right now you're gonna have free access to all our journal. So this is editorial board member, ongoing editorial board member. So right now we have 31 international scholars that count for 63%, and the rest of 40% are from Chinese scholars in a wide diversity of disciplines. The key publications we have right now in this journal, so we primarily have 3 columns. So the first one, the majority one, papers count for 80%. Yeah, 80% will be the typical papers. These papers normally include both theoretical and also empirical studies. And also sometimes it will also include the design research and literature reviews. So the topic is also very diverse, covering both urban, rural, and nature landscapes. So the second column we call it innovative perspectives, because occasionally there's a lot of spontaneous, very interesting ideas, both in theoretical and also in education, and also in our professional innovations. We are trying to collect this innovation and publish in the form of short essay. And then by the end, we have pioneer practices. So the practice that primary is professional project, especially design finished project. So we publish case studies, especially studies who gonna reflect on the strengths and the potentials of this project. So yeah, we really encourage practitioners' criticism thinking into their whole design and also build procedure. So this is the things we have been discussed and published in the last few years. So there's already over 70 things published previously. It's a lot. So my talk today, I will gonna be a lot about our group, okay, the Landscape Architecture Foundation group, what we are thinking about our current status, and also what I want to tell about to the young scholars. So the first one, our group did the research. We use the keyword of landscape, okay. So only within the 2003 years, there's already so many published English publication we found online. And 40% of this population is relevant to landscape. Okay, 40% is relevant. And then this is the authorship. So from this page, we can see the Chinese scholars and also the American scholars, as you can see. So it's pretty much published the majority of the English articles. So here's the status for the Chinese scholars. So we were shocked how rapid the scientific publication growth and also the quality transformation recently from Chinese scholars. So right now, the hot topics published by Chinese scholars is already over 50%. So the highly cited papers, so we are already ranked top 2. So America is still the top 1. So China, right now, we are the top, ranked the 2nd. And at the same time, so according to the citation report in 2022, so we already have a lot of discipline, okay, a lot of discipline. The citation score and also the published papers already ranked #1. Yeah, so here's a list of the relevant. So there's especially in environmental and the ecological field. Okay, so Chinese scholar already published the majority of the papers. So this really means Chinese scholar has contributed a large number of high quality papers in English, in environmental and ecological field, as well as civil engineering and also architecture. At the same time, we observed that there's a changing trend. There's a very encouraging changing trend for our field. So the national strategy really supported the landscape architecture discipline because we can offer a lot of application potential for this research result. And here is a requirement from our national research policies. It's really required there's a 1%, 20% or 50% of the paper need to be published in Chinese journals or journal issued by China. So this really means our Chinese landscape journal will have a really big pool of potential submission, and also we will have a big pool of social desire for our field. But at the same time, we have a lot of challenges. For the young, especially for the young scholars. So it's very challenging to publish papers not indexed in ICI and also SSCI. So there's people just choosing, top 1 journal will be in our field. Most people would prefer to submit to landscape and planning, and also sustainable science and society. This kind of top-tiered journal will be the first choice because that is required by the policy, especially for the tenure promotion. So that is required. And at the same time, I think young scholars will also face this problem because our discipline is so cross-disciplinary. You're gonna have trouble to really identify where to submit. Partially because our landscape is practiced really at the interface of architecture, urban and rural planning, ecology, forestry, geography, and sociology. So there's a lot of potential journals we can submit, but also there's challenges in terms of where we could submit. And the third one, I think this is going to be the most challenging one for our field, and especially for young scholars, is a mismatch between academic research and also professional need, practice need. We believe landscape architecture as a field, as a discipline, should be practice-oriented. But right now, all our academic, I don't know, the whole evaluation system really favor research paradigms that are really quantifiable and reproductive. I don't know whether this value, I don't like this value system. This is really a mismatch in our field. And also because of this requirement, we follow the academic standards from other disciplines. So we value their statistical and quantifiable result, but we put much less on the practical wisdom. And we believe that this kind of practical wisdom, a lot should be translated into academic output. So one example, I always show to my students. So majority of the design experiment and the majority of the design wisdom is not a scientific procedure, but it's a beautiful accident. So this is a very famous so-called right now is a sustainability shape, and also the panel. So solar panel system. So this whole procedure, is not come from a well-designed experiment. It starts with a dilemma, also a challenge, because weeds grow so widely under panels due to reduced evaporation. And this kind of solar panel, really, create a lot of fire. These weeds create a lot of fire hazard for the potential. and then local people trying to clean out the weeds. And then the station tried to introduce the sheep to try to clean the weeds. And then it ended up works very well because the sheep can survive in the shade. And also the solar panel works more efficiently by the end. So this kind of wisdom is by accident, but not by scientific research. So there's a lot of very similar practice and a lot of similar result happened in our field, but all this has not been included in our publication. I think this is really a mismatch in our publication process. And then the third challenge is really we have a lot of culture barrier in the international discussions. So I don't know why. I think China has a lot of different cultural philosophy. So I use one example of the 三生空间. So the 三生空间 is very famous and well applied in Chinese system, but it's too philosophical. It's really difficult to translate into English, and also it's very difficult to understand by international scholars. So this is also why there's so many times research based on Chinese cases is often regarded as a area study or regional study, but rather as a theoretical foundation, theoretical contributions to the international audience. So the last one is right now the most challenging part so far, because there's, with the support of AI, really publications, English publications from Chinese scholars are really booming. Right now, the peer review procedure has been really elongated. So this is my students just send me a note. So we submitted a paper 3 weeks ago, and then the journal editor sent out first round, sent out 7 review, and nobody responds. And right now they sent another 6 reviewers. So far there's still nobody responds. So there's yes, even the review requests turn out to be a big burden for many of the journals. So to solve all of these problems, so we are trying, we make a lot of adjustment to our landscape architecture frontiers. We are trying to, our objective of the journal right now is really focused on bridging the science practice gaps. We are trying to promote, and also we are trying to promote global knowledge sharing. And also we are trying to publish both in Chinese and also in English, because majority of the practitioners in China, they never read papers in English. At the same time, we focus a lot on global issues. The most thing we want to change is we want to change our journal as a science practice interface. So we really want to promote the connection of research result and also landscape practice. We did a lot of new changes to our journal. So the first one, we changed the requirement of our graphical abstract. Because of the designers and also practitioners, we like to look at pictures. So our graphical abstract right now emphasize on the practical implementation of your research. And then at the same time, on our column of practice reflection, so we always ask practitioners to reflect upon the science practice interface and how their practice can be supported by the science and also by the research evidence. At the same time, I initiate a series of new speech series or talk series. So I call it the Landscape Design Research Frontiers. So this series of talks will focus to promote evidence-based design and also solution-oriented research. We're gonna invited a lot of scholars. A majority of scholars will be cross-disciplinary. And also we will also invite the practitioners. So we want to set people together to have dialogues in terms of how we really can merge research and practice together. So right now we already have 4 speakers. Yeah, we just start this year. So right now we already have 4 speakers, and the next one will be next week. Gonna be Professor Long from Tsinghua University. And then the last thing, we are trying really to enhance our services and to young scholars. So this is the thing I promise to all young scholars. So since now, after your submission, if your first submission, first response more than 1 month, you can directly contact me. Okay, so we are really trying to reduce the submission and also the review procedure, and trying to really reduce the time. Right now, we already be able to achieve from submission to final review to final acceptance. We are trying to control all submission within 17 days. Okay, so within 3 months, you're going to publish the paper online. And then Li Mengyixi asked me to respond to this question in terms of how authors' expectation to reviewers and the reviewers' expectation to authors. So I briefly highlight my thoughts. Okay, so because as authors, we always want timely, professional, and also constructive, respectful feedbacks, and especially useful feedback. But the reviewers always want something with innovation, also with scientific rigors. But for me, if I want to tell the young scholars, so I will say this. Okay, actually, I say this to my students all the time. Okay, the reviewers are always correct. So yeah, this is I told my students and my group. Yeah, and for this one, I would briefly explain it in Chinese why I would say this. OK， 所以这个我给大家说一下啊，我为什么要用我想用中文给大家说一下这个事情啊？这个事情我觉得是年轻的人经常遇到的一个问题，就是看到了一个东西，就是说我这东西都说了，为什么 reviewer 没看见？然后你这东西都说了 ，reviewer 没看见，那就说明你说的不够清晰。然后说我这个东西他说了我做不了。那你一下子做不了太大，那你就可以把它写到 limitation 里面。然后实际上是我觉得非常非常多的人，包括我自己本身啊，自己本身初期在这方面都是犯过错误的。实际上，当你真的是真正的去正视所有的审稿人的时候，所有的问题的时候，你会发现，如果你能把所有的问题都改了之后，你自己的那个东西才能够真正的变得特别特别的优秀，你能把它改得特别特别的清晰，好吧？是这么一个状态啊。所以大家记着，我想跟大家说的一个非常重要的话，就是审稿人的意见永远都是对的。So at the same time, so this is our 3 thing we want to continue to work on, and also we also really want to really to continue, yeah, to the for the to 呀，猛的一说我又不会说，这块我还说吧，因为这块我前期准备这个整个 talk 全是用这个中文准备的，好吧？我给大家简单的说一下啊，就是说我们整个的这个呢啊，就是在未来的时候，肯定是我们将来是保持3个核心的不变的东西，学术质量肯定不会变，然后当时我们服务学科的初心也不会变，然后先锋的精神也不会变，同时我们也会积极的去应对3个变化。去应对这个技术的变革，去应对内容创新的一个勇气，同时抱着更加开放的一个胸怀去迎接未来的一个变化，好吧？然后最后希望我们的这个景观中国景观的期刊能够成为连接全球景观学术共同体的重要的枢纽。OK， so let's share our Eastern wisdom to the world's sustainable development. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the presentation of Wang Zhifang. I think that's concluded the conclusion is really give us the courage. Yeah, and also I think we need to put together the power to make our English journal better. Yeah. And I think is there the question in the chat box? Let me check. No questions. And maybe Jill, I think there's no question in the chat box. Do you want to say something about maybe give a question about when you listen to all the presentations, your feelings, or do you have any questions about?
Thank you very much. Thanks, Meng. So I have a question for Professor Wang Shifeng. I'm interested to know, do you think we're going to move towards AI doing our reviews, given that reviewing is such a difficult process at the moment for editors? And maybe our other two speakers could think about this as well.
Okay, so yeah, this is a really key point right now. I personally use AI to conduct review. But I don't think the AI can replace reviewers. No, when I work using AI to conduct a review, normally what I'm gonna do is I first quickly look through the paper, and then I have my own opinion, and I'm gonna list my opinion in Chinese because I'm more familiar with Chinese. So I'm gonna list my key opinion, especially the suggestions I'm gonna make. The thing I want the scholar to change. So I'm gonna make a list of this my opinion, my key point, and with all this, I will feed my opinion to AI and ask AI to write down my opinion in English. So this is my typical way to work with AI. I think if we just send the AI, I tried. I don't think the AI can really work as a reviewer because they are trying at the first. They are always trying to be complimentary. So they can say, oh, this is so good, so, and then if I ask them, so trying to be harsh, and then he said, okay, yeah, then that's some problem. So I think AI will listen to us. So if we want a review to be good, so he gonna AI gonna give us something very nice comments. If we want AI to be critical, he can be very critical. So this is my opinion. So I think we should encourage using AI, but also as a reviewer and also as an editor, we really should put our opinion into the process. But rather let AI do the whole work.
Thank you, Professor Wang. Ian, what's your feeling?
I have a slightly different opinion. I don't like AI in reviews. I can see, I fully appreciate what Dr. Wang just said and how it's shaping and helping me to reshape stuff. But I was just looking at something during the presentations, and the European Union has now banned AI from doing reviews of applications for funding because they take so long, but they don't actually understand what's being said there. Even if you've trained it really effectively, it still doesn't do the job of a person. One of the reasons that I think AI is difficult in reviews is the knowledge that we all have as scholars it far exceeds what we can train a machine to think about. And as editors, we can, as Dr. Hunt said, we can pick something out as being really important from one sentence or two sentences and know that's the thing. AI can't do that. And I think if we leave it to AI to do the reviews or to do things, then I think a lot of that nuance or innovation will be lost. And I know that there's certainly a lot of concern in certain parts of academia around reviewers using AI and never actually reading the paper. And I think that's problematic because it kind of stops the system working, because we all need to agree that the system requires people to look at stuff. And I think if we're using AI just to shape and to make sure what we're saying is what we want to say, I think that's absolutely fine. But there are definitely people, and I have colleagues who use AI to write their emails for them. It's like, well, it's not you. It needs to be you to write it. I think there's a growing trend of AI being used. I think it's problematic. And I know certainly when I'm reading through a paper when it comes in, I can pick out, as Professor Wang said, what I think's good and what I think's bad. whereas I don't think AI could, because I've read so much stuff that I can kind of work out where it is. But with all the time constraints that everyone has, I think it is a tool which people are turning to. And just one final point is on something that Professor Wang said, is that AI will give you what you want. If you phrase the question positively, you'll get a positive response. If you phrase it negatively, it will go all in. And I was reading something the other day about, if you phrase a hypothetical with a no first rather than a yes first, it will say no, because it wants you to like it. It wants to give you what you want. And I think that's problematic in academia. It removes some of that objectivity that we should have and stuff. So yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of AI in academia, but I know we all have to work with it.
Really, right now, I think majority of journal, there's a AI review requirement. So we cannot, just upload the paper, it's a manuscript online to the AI. So yeah, so far, I still use AI. For me, partially because, English writing takes too much time. So for me, that's a procedure, to really quickly help me to frame everything in English. Yeah. That part really helps. Yeah.
And Professor Zheng Xi, what's your view?
Professor Zheng Xi have another meeting. Maybe he's later come back. Yeah. So an excuse. So Ian?
I do have a comment, actually, and it's something, again, that Professor Wang mentioned, and it was
Journal
about and it's about that notion of area studies and regional specializations. I think it's really interesting how you've pitched it as a East-West. I pitched it as a North America versus everybody else, because with something like landscape and urban planning, they will publish the smallest study on an American city. But if you tried that in Germany or the UK or in China, like, no, it's not global enough. And so I think there are real problems with, landscape and urban planning, but also the Annals of the American Association of Geographers, where if it's US based, it's fine. But if you try and replicate that elsewhere, actually it becomes too localized. And I think that's really problematic, because if you're looking at the specificity of climate change in China, for example, north, south, east, west, inland, coastal, it is so specific that it's relevant to so many other areas of the world, particularly in Asia, but also South Asia, Latin America. But for some journals, like, oh no, it's too Chinese or it's too local. And the same way, if we were doing things in the UK that aren't London, it's too local. But actually, that's the stuff that most people are working on. Not everyone's working on Shanghai. They're working on that second or third tier city, because that's where they work. And I think there's a real need to kind of push back on editors going, no, this is it's not meaningful to our readership. And actually, it probably is, compared to just another Rust Belt study in the US, which we've seen lots of. So I thought that was a really interesting point. It's one I fully agree with.
Yeah. I have another impression right now about ongoing publication trend. So not about original right now, because Chinese scholar trying to chase the high citation, indexed journals. So the top tier journal will be Nature and Science. So how to, some of my friends told me, how to publish in this kind of top tier journals. You study international data, use international data and to generate some result. So I call this kind of research as kind of in the view or in the God's will. So I don't know whether it's useful or not. So but this is ongoing trend in China. So more and more scholar, less focus on local based issue, but trying to catch up the global perspectives. Yeah, because this kind of global perspective is much easier to publish in the English journals.
And I would add one more thing, that the amount of systematic reviews which are being submitted, and they're the systematic reviews on the same thing with a slightly different angle, and it's kind of become that, oh, people think that overview is the way to get published, but there's a point when we've had too many systematic reviews on urban regeneration or green infrastructure or nature-based solutions, like there's not much left to say. And I think partly that's to do with how PhDs are supervised, particularly in North America, but also in the UK as well, where people are like, oh, your literature review is now a systematic review, go and publish it. And it's like, well, does it offer something really new that's adding to the debate, or is it just going through the same stuff again? And I think that need to publish is like, a literature review can be your first paper, and it can be, but it has to be something different. So you're almost elevating it into a bigger conversation, but it loses some of the value of what's the study about, or what's its value locally.
Yeah. That's also another challenge. Yeah. So we receive a lot of literature review, just, very statistical literature review with a lot of data, but no opinion. Right? Yeah. So I don't like really. What's the software used to conduct this kind of statistical result? Do you remember? Yeah. So what's the software? It's called. Yeah, I really hate that. No. So it's called systematic review, but it's just the data. So there are so many people publish, but from different kind of university and from different discipline. So you have a big, very interesting photo showing that, and then just no opinion. Yeah.
And I think that also counts for when people, and a point I made about having big data sets. It's like, here's a big data set, here's some analysis. In my own department, we have real estate people and economists. They all have their big equations. They go, this equation shows this, and it's just lots of tables, but it's not framed. It's not framed with a question. It's not contextualized. It's just, here's some data. And it's like, well, what's the point of that data? What are you trying to do with it? And I think the best papers are the ones who have that data, but say, here's a really important question, and this data allows us to then interrogate all these different aspects of it to do something new. And I think that front and back end often gets missed because it's the data that is viewed as being the only important thing.
That's a very critical point right now. And actually, what you are talking about, for me, my observation is getting worse and worse in the age of big data. So right now, because the data is so big, so people cannot really display all the data result. So even the analysis procedure became a black box, especially with the AI, everything became a black box. So what we see, I don't know. We see a lot of data and we see the result. So how they come up with the result is a black box. So you just try to believe it or not. So I see so many publications in this format right now. So I think it's going to be a serious problems. Yeah. But I don't know how to solve it. There's some discussion with other journal, with the landscape ecology, with the land. So I raise up this question. So yeah, there's no solution to this. Yeah, because so far, using multi-source data and with the big data is a fashion. If you don't use it, you are already kind of not old tradition. So, but if we use too much, so it becomes problem. So we cannot judge the scientific rigorous of the whole procedure. So that's really for me, it's a big challenge.
And that seems to be really baked into the Chinese system, with all the funding being totally around innovative methods and big data and doing something that involves lots of shiny outputs rather than thinking about the questions. And again, it's something that from as an outsider observing this, I'm like, well, that's fine, but what's this bit? Why do you want to know it? And I know that colleagues that I work with can get frustrated because they've got really solid methodologies that are producing good papers, but it's not large language models, it's not AI, it's not big data, therefore it's not viewed as being innovative enough, even though it's really robust and rigorous academic work. And I think that can be quite frustrating.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you are right. You know well about China.
Yeah, because Ian has many times come to China. Yeah,
Oh,
to
great.
many universities like Tongji and other cities, also Beijing.
Okay,
So next
great.
time when Ian comes
Yeah,
to
sure.
Beijing,
Welcome.
maybe
Yeah, welcome you
yeah.
too. Yeah, yeah. You and yeah, in welcome. Yeah, I welcome to Peking University. Yeah, next time.
Yeah. And at the end, about the data, Jill, could you say a little bit about our journal, Landscape Research? I think our journal is not only focused on the data collection and also some of the result. Maybe could you say a little bit something about the
Well, just
landscape
quickly, because we're going to have to wrap it up, but and Ian will know just as much as me, but landscape research, when we do editorial work on it, we are looking very much for that research problem and the reason, the rationale for doing the study. So it's less about just presenting results, although I have to say, you know, in my past, I have seen survey articles highly cited simply because they do gather a lot of data around a particular topic and they survey something and then present it as findings. But really, most of the articles that our reviewers are looking at are really wanting to know, well, what is the problem? What are the research questions?
Okay, that's the all information for today's session. Thank you very much. I'm really honored you come to join us. And as the first one sessions, I think it's very, very awesome and very good for the audience to listen to all of you for the session will be held in the next Thursday on the 9th April. We are going to have the session 2 dialogue with editors publishing in Belgium and international journals. And I think we'll continue to welcome all of you to join us. And thank you very much. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.